I'm Javier Espinoza, Europe Executive Editor at the Capital Forum. This is the Brussels Beat. In this podcast, we have in-depth conversations with key people influencing policy today. Previous guests have included Margaret Vestager, Terry Breton, Enrico Letta, and Teresa Rivera. I'm delighted to be in Amsterdam with Glenn Fogel, Chief Executive Officer of Booking Holdings, one of the world's largest travel companies and a central player in European digital markets debate. Booking sits at the crossroads of the EU's Digital Markets Act, the DMA, hotel class actions in Germany and the Netherlands, and the growing impact of AI on travel search and distribution. We'll discuss how Booking is adapting to Google's shifting search behavior, your own response to the scrutiny that the company is facing, Booking's response as well to complaints from hotels, and how the company is navigating a new era in which AI could reshape or even further concentrate competition in online travel. Glenn, you have been the CEO of Booking since 2017. Before joining the company, you were an investment banker at Morgan Stanley. Under your leadership, the company has expanded heavily into mobile and more recently into AI-driven travel tools. You have been a key figure in European digital policy. Booking has revenues that come from the US side of the business, but a significant chunk of it comes from Europe. Your company has been deeply affected by the Digital Markets Act and action at member state level as well. Booking is currently fighting price parity clauses and hotel class actions in Europe. You have been personally very vocal against the DMA, arguing that it will advantage foreign rivals. This is the first thing I remember you said to me when we first spoke in 2020. We met a few times over the years, and I only recently learned actually that you had a stroke at a very early age. This must have had a profound way in the way that you carry yourself.
You know, it's interesting because I was just asked a couple days ago at a leadership offsite they were doing, and we do it at a university in Switzerland, and the professor asked me about, think back, what are some of the challenges that you have faced? And I mentioned that I was 17 years old, and I had a severe stroke, completely paralyzed on the right side. But that wasn't really the bad part, though it was not good. The bad part was completely wiped out all of my language skills, so I couldn't speak, I couldn't read. I mean, what formerly had been obvious to any, I could talk or a normal human being, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and I couldn't communicate at all. And from that, this is a year before I was supposed to go to university. My parents had never been to the university. I was going to be first generation to go off to higher learning, and then it was all gone. And it took a long time to come back. But fortunately, thank God, things came back, and now I was able to be somewhat successful after what looked like could have been a very bad future. So I recognize how much luck plays in one's life. Bad luck, I got sick, who knows why, stroke is random, but then I got better. Also, perhaps a lot of randomness there too.
Wow, and a lot has happened, and you're facing, I'm sure you have faced lots of personal challenges and a lot of business challenges as well, which is why we're here to discuss. I want to go straight into the DMA Google regulation scrutiny. Google argues that the DMA is forcing it to redesign its search in ways that are hurting hotels and benefiting intermediaries companies like Booking. And I wonder what's your view on that.
Well, I can only speak to ourselves. We haven't noticed any benefit. But I leave it up to the commission, and they look at this stuff, and they'll come out with what they think the results are. For us, I can just say, no benefits us yet that I notice.
Mm-hmm. And if you say no benefits, has it even been in detriment, or what changed?
Neutral. I would say it's neutral.
Meaning that what does neutral look like?
Neutral means that there's no change from anything that they've done that's impacted our business results. We have not seen anything. I've heard people talk about that, But we shake our heads and say, well, not us. So we look forward, let the investigation be done by the official people who do that sort of investigation.
One of the key points that the EU people that I talk to and that I'm sure you have been listening to over the years is that these rules and this affecting the behavior of the gatekeepers is supposed to benefit the market. Is that maybe an indication then in a sense that things are moving too slowly, or that these rules are not really fit for purpose?
Well, actually, the whole thing is a fascinating case study of how technology changes very rapidly, very fast. And regulators appropriately trying to come up with what are the ground rules to make sure that our society works in a fair way. And the problem is, though, the technology goes too quick for the people who are trying to come up with the rules to keep, so things change all the time. So coming up, I remember talking with some of the officials when the DMA was being looked at. I said, have you guys been noticing what's going on in AI right now? Mm-hmm. If you think you have some issues right now to talk about, trying to just give a little bit of time. And I have to say, there were some, we hear, but we're dealing with the way the world is today. And that what came out with the DMA and some of the other rules, not being able to look forward and put together what potentially could be the new way the world works. And it's an unfortunate thing. But for ourselves, look, we recognize the need to have rules that apply to everybody fairly so that we can all have an equal opportunity to compete.
Mm-hmm. And to your point of AI, in fact, Google, if we go back to, I'm focusing on Google because it's, a key player in this market, and whatever behavior they have or not will have a direct impact or not, apparently, to your business. And we have now AI overviews, AI mode. They're changing how users are interacting. This affects visibility, traffic, if you, and I guess you have the ears of the regulators frequently, but what do you tell them that they need to do to influence this market?
We don't tell regulators to do anything. We don't tell them to do. They decide what to do.
Mm-hmm. What do you suggest?
We can give our advice. We can give our perspective. We can tell them what we see on the ground, actually in the real world, what we're actually experiencing. And then it's up to them to use all the information they get to try and come up with what's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. I will say that things are changing so rapidly right now. It's very hard to know how things should be laid out in terms of a rule book. Look, AI stuff is fantastic in terms of it's going to bring great benefits to everyone, I believe. At the same time, there can be consequences that are detrimental to some people, and certainly there can be change in terms of economic benefits and detriments. For ourselves, we're seeing it happen all the time. But what's interesting, so you mentioned Google a lot, and Google is the biggest player, the giant elephant in the room. But there are also other AI players too. I mean, it's interesting, and I don't have statistics for Europe right now. How many people go to ChatGPT to get their travel information? I don't know the numbers here. In the States, it's an awful lot. I know that. So you have to put that in too. And I believe that you may have someone from Google say, hey, excuse me, there's that big player OpenAI that runs this thing called ChatGPT that has 1 billion, maybe 1 billion people visiting it monthly. And it's worth, I don't know, what's the last valuation? $500 billion US, maybe something like that. How come they're not regulated like we are? I could see someone from Google being a little bit like, this doesn't seem to be equal opportunity at all. Mm-hmm. I myself wonder about that. And it's not just, you mentioned DMA, but there's so many rules that come into play. DSA, I had an interesting conversation with somebody recently. They had mentioned an issue about hotel rankings and fairness. And we were discussing, how does this work? When you have a large language model, and that comes out with results that are called non-deterministic, mm-hmm. meaning, just to be very high level, they cannot explain why those hotels came up. But in the DSA, you're supposed to be able to say why you recommended these hotels. So there's a bit of a conflict here. But don't forget, for some reason, OpenAI, with its $500 billion valuation, and it's billion people around the world using it. I don't know how many in Europe, but it's certainly a heck of a lot more than we are. A heck of a lot, many times more than we have. Yet for some reason, they're not under the DSA. They're not a VLOP? How could that be? How could that be? And then I can bring up with others too. Now, one, I don't know the answer, by the way. I haven't gotten an answer to that one. But I could see potential things. Well, we're looking at it and we're doing the process to come through it and all that, and it takes time. So that loops back to my beginning part about how it's hard. The regulators are trying to keep up, but things change so rapidly. Look, OpenAI, who heard of OpenAI 4 years ago, right? Practically nobody. And look where it is now. So that's my issue of it's a hard case for regulators to try and maintain what the playbook for regulation should be.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, the landscape has changed so dramatically, and we can go into different directions on AI. If I focus on AI overview specifically, some believe that this might be illegal self-preferencing because essentially it's steering users to Google's own hotel services or name any other sort of emerging gatekeepers. What are your thoughts, and what should regulators be thinking about, not what you're telling them?
Well, the same way the regulators always do. They'll look at the evidence, the data, and they'll decide, look, we believe in a fair playing field, and we do not like someone to be able to self-preference their own versus others. And certainly regulators have been looking at that very closely. And we'll see. This is a new thing, the AI overview, and we'll see whether they decide or not it is or it isn't. I can't give an opinion because I'm not doing the investigation. One of the things we like to do is like to use data to make our decisions.
Yeah.
I don't have any data in front of me on this to make a decision, but I'm glad that regulators are appropriately looking at it carefully, and they'll come back and say whether it is or isn't.
Yeah, and some of these features are becoming so embedded, like not being aware of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and then not. I personally use it frequently. I'm an avid user.
You're an avid user, and I bet you feel that what's being told to you is authoritatively truthful, right? You have
I'm
a
trying
sense
to discern.
right, but generally, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. I'll bet you kind of feel like, yeah, that's the right answer, right? But maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And certainly the problem could be, and this is one of the things I understand it, if I'm a small hotelier and somebody puts into a ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and they ask for hotels in a place, and the small hotel isn't showing up now. And they're thinking, why aren't I showing up anymore? And the question is, well, the way these LM work, the way the model works, it's giving more, there's more probability a larger hotel that is more in the test set of data is going to show up more often. And that's a problem for the small hotelier and such, because when the person looks at it and they hear these large hotels coming out, the customer feels that's the place, because I was just saying, you feel it's authoritative, you feel it's truthful, that must be the answer. One of the things that I do feel is unfortunate is that we have always felt, as from the time we first started, that we were the platform that enabled the small independent hotels in Europe. We have over 2 million properties in Europe, over 2 million, and we gave them a way to be visible to consumers, and that they'd have a chance to show all the wonderful things that they could offer to those travelers. And we didn't charge anything at all, and we put them on for free, and we did all the work, the translations, all the content. And we said, if we get to put somebody in your hotel, please pay us a commission. A wonderful, wonderful system, a wonderful way, because the small hotel doesn't have a big loyalty plan like the big giant international chains have. And the international chains have the incredible marketing machines they have. Very hard for the small hotelier to compete in the past. But with us, with that platform that we came out with more than 2 decades ago, almost 3 decades ago almost, and enabled that small hotelier to have that chance, that was wonderful. My concern now is with these large language models, go in, put in, like, I need a hotel in Sicily. How many hotels do you think are going to show up?
Yeah.
They're going to offer you 3.
I have done it as well, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I feel that's a problem, I believe.
So how can we do it? Obviously, you're not the regulator, but you're a company of significant size. What are you doing to tackle this issue of transparency, visibility? Huge concern. You said earlier that these large language models, we don't even understand how this comes up. So what are you actually, how are you adapting to Google's rapid developments or OpenAI?
Well, one thing we do is have a conversation like you and I are having right now to make sure that everyone's aware of this situation. I mean, putting sunlight on an issue, a problem, is the best way to try and bring up with, well, what should we do about it? Because we can't do this alone at all. We need help from all the players in the travel industry to understand how do we create a world that enables the small hoteliers to have that opportunity like we have been doing for a long time, and we don't want that to disappear. From my senses, it's going to take some time, but I like the fact that the regulators and all the players in the space do have conversations and are explaining how this is currently being used and trying to make sure we go forward with a method that is providing fairness to all.
Interesting. In this podcast, we've had intellectuals, politicians, commissioners. We've never had actually a CEO in this podcast. You're the first one. And one of the reasons maybe it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I was keen to talk to you because booking is under a lot of scrutiny. So if I take hotels, for example, they have been arguing that booking is keeping price parity essentially in substance. Booking might say that it has eliminated it, but in name, but through commission adjustments or pricing structures, is still doing the behavior that they, so vocally oppose. What do you say to that?
So I think what's important is first, so everybody understands this whole idea of parity. And certainly under DMA, we eliminated parity in July 2024. There is no parity. However, I think it's really important we understand what is parity, right?
Yeah.
And this is what's really bizarre from the beginning for me. Okay, so parity was an idea that we said to the hoteliers. I just talked to you a little bit about how we provide all these services for free, and we're saying to the hotelier, all we ask is that if we, with all the money we spent, and all the marketing we did and everything we did, and we're able to get a customer into your hotel, please pay us a commission. That seems a reasonable thing. Here's the issue, though. One of the things we all liked was offering the customer a free cancellation. Seems reasonable enough to do. So what you would have, though, is we said, well, here's a little bit of a problem. Because it's frictionless to change in terms of, say, I'll cancel and then rebook somewhere else, we'd say to the hotelier, we say, look, it's a good deal, but we'd like one thing, please. Please, if you have a low price, please give us the low price too. Please give us the same low prices that you're giving anywhere else or on your own site. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise what would happen is we spend all that money so you're shown up when we spend all that money for people to come to our site and they see all the beautiful pictures, all the work we did together, and then they choose your hotel. And we have a price, let's say because you set the price. We don't set the price. You set the price. And you set the price with us at 100 euros. But you put 90 euros on your own site, okay? What happened is they look at us, but it takes 2 seconds just to type in the name of the hotel, and they go to the hotel and say, oh, it's only 90 euros there. And then, of course, they cancel with us or don't book with us, and they book with the hotel, we get no revenue. That model wouldn't work at all. It seems very fair to say, look, just please give us the same low price that you're giving on your own site, and that's a good deal for both of us and all that. That's what parity is. When people come out and they say, oh, you are demanding that they can't lower their price, that's bull. That's not the way it was. And it really bothers me when I read articles, people saying that Booking.com was demanding that the hotels don't lower their prices. That's not it at all. What we were asking is, please give us the low prices too. That's what's good for the consumer. That drives the customer to get the best price. It makes sure they get the lowest price. Even let's say it wasn't, and the hotel put the price down lower, and the person booked with us with a higher price, and they go to the place and they find out they could have gotten it lower over at the hotel. They're going to feel they got cheated by us. Well, we didn't cheat anybody. The hotel gave us that higher price. See how unfair that is? So I believe this whole thing was crazy from the beginning. However, Clearly, it's not allowed. It's no longer legal for us to ask for the same low price for the customers, even though we do all that work. Whatever. That's the rule. We obey it. But then somebody comes, oh, you're doing something sneaky to try and get the same low price as the hotel gets. What's going on? I don't understand this.
And this is part of your earlier frustrations, because I remember when you started having this conversation, the DMA was not even in place, but this was one of your key worries.
Truly. And now it is. And now it is.
Yeah. And so is that what is that damaging revenues? What is happening exactly?
I believe that we would be much better off, and the consumer would be much better off. Absolutely would have been better off if we were still allowed to ask the hotels to please give us the same low price you give anyone else or yourselves. But no, we can't do that. So I believe I'll bet there's some people who they come to us, they look, and maybe then they go back to the hotel. Maybe the hotel's offering a lower price. I'll bet that does happen. And that, to me, does not seem the right way things should be.
Yeah.
But it is. It is what it is.
And the way that you're articulating this, I can tell that you've said this many times. In the commission still, though.
But the law is done. They're not opening it up again. It's over. It's done.
But they're still looking at, as I understand, some other practices, including getting the same room from multiple sources or setting prices in ways that the hotels, again, are worried that might be circumventing the spirit of the DMA.
Right. So let me sure I understand what you said, though. Getting the price of the rooms from other sources, you mean instead of the hotel? So the hotel doesn't like it if they've offered a lower price somewhere else, and we wanted to get the lowest price for the customer gets the best price they could get. They don't like the fact that we go somewhere else and get that price so the customer does well, and they're saying that's not right.
They don't put it like that.
Well, but that's what it is, right?
I
think that's, it sounds like what it is, right?
How is the engagement with the commission on this point? Because I know that the push is really tough.
We are very open, transparent. We have an open door thing. We love, please come visit, look at our data, look at our numbers, look at everything. Everything we're doing is meeting the obligations in the law because we are a law-abiding company, absolutely. Doesn't mean it's best for society the way the law was written, but it is what it is, and we obey it.
Yeah.
By the way, not the first time a regulation has come out that actually has unintended consequences that actually end up with not exactly what you tried to.
What are the unintended consequences? Because you were extremely vocal ahead of time. Now we have some information.
Yeah.
We have a timeline of these rules coming into effect.
Well,
what are the unintended consequences?
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So it comes out, and all of a sudden, what a surprise, there are lawyers who decide they like to sue us for past what they allege were practices that should not be allowed when the DMA came out. Okay. Now, we absolutely will win in these cases, et cetera. But what's going on? I have to devote resources, time, money, hire lawyers, spend a lot of time and energy and effort on this. Instead of building better services and better products for Europe. Instead of hiring engineers to compete globally, I'm hiring lawyers to defend against class action lawsuits. Okay, and here's the incredible thing. Who wins in this whole thing at the end of the day? You know who wins in the end? I'll tell you who. The lawyers. They're the ones who win in the end. Doesn't good for society. And you
always need a lawyer, huh?
Well, and the thing is, this whole class action ridiculousness thing, it's a little bit of an export from the U.S. Class action lawsuits in the U.S. have been around for a long time. There are a lot of very wealthy lawyers with you. And now we're seeing this popping up in Europe. And I'm saying, oh, my God, this is horrible. Because what it does is it slows down innovation. It makes it more costly to do business. It's everything wrong with what we need to do here to make sure that we can compete globally. Has anybody not noticed that we are falling behind? I mean, actually, people have. We read the Draghi report, and there's so many people saying it. But just saying it won't make it happen. We need to take concrete action. And one of the actions would be, let's be very careful of allowing class action lawsuits that have no merit, but taking time and resources away from things that would actually be productive for society.
So one side effect that you identify is the booming times for the legal profession. What about any changes in your business model?
Well, what we're trying to do to compete globally is come back with what I've always talked about, the connected trip, which really would be a way to make travel easier. Look, we all travel and we're all frustrated many times. It takes forever to put things together and you're not sure if one thing's going to be okay, and you try and say, well, do I have to book it now and then right away, or can I get the other stuff? Getting it all together would be so much better, which is what we're trying to do. And will provide opportunities for our partners, our supplier friends, to be able to market in a better way that they can then reach out to customers that will be good for their businesses. And that requires a lot of technology, a lot of effort. That'll be really, really wonderful. But another example, if you recall, just going back with history, not ancient history, but history, we wanted to make this easier way to do travel. We wanted to bring in an air ticket selling company called eTraveli. And we had no travel business in the air area at all. We didn't do air tickets at all. So we had a commercial relation with them. And it was working, just very small, just beginning to work. Wouldn't it be good if we acquired that company and then we could work much tighter together and give a better connected trip for the travelers? Be good for everybody? And we were not allowed to buy it. The competition authority said, oh, that's not good. I mean, think about this. We have no air business at all, but they felt it would be anti-competitive. How could that be? And they said,
I believe the argument was to do with network effects. No?
What I had to deal with is they said it would improve your hotel business.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would make travel better. I'll give you that, a little bit better. Okay, a little bit better. And they said, well, and you have the dominant position in hotels, which is another thing. I'm like, how could that be? How could you say we have a dominant, and this is what they assigned that we are the dominant player in hotels. I said, have you noticed the statistics that the biggest channel for hotels is direct by far? This is from the hotel industry says this. The hotel industry says more than 50% of bookings go to them direct. They say maybe 30%, their numbers, maybe 30% or so, go to online travel players like us, among others. So we have some portion of that 30%, which let's say, what the heck, let's give ourselves half. So we have about 15% of all the bookings, just throwing it out there. That's a dominant position. I said, let's do the simple. Forget the math. Let's go this. I go to anybody on the street. Do you feel that you only have one way to go to Google? Go get your hotel? And they'll say, well, I go to Google a lot, right? You know, Google's not even counted in this idea of how you find a hotel. Is that not crazy? I mean, the whole thing to me is just mind-boggling, but we live with it.
I speak to lots of regulators, including people that were involved in the merger side and now the DMA. What they observe is that companies, people in your position, when they get big, they want to just get bigger and they want to grab more market share and they want to undermine the little guy. And I not to speak on their behalf, but this is the real concern. It's not coming out of nowhere. It's not,
We make our business.
It's not like they want to undermine your business or like stop it from growing.
It's so strange because our whole business is predicated. Our basis is doing the business for the small player. You know, I talked about last week. We did our earnings announcements with the public Wall Street types. And we talked about how, do you know, we only get a low double digit of our business comes from the big international chains. I think the quote we said, low double digit, that's like low teens percentage, go to the top 10 international chains. That means almost 90% of our business is with the smaller independent players. That's who we are supporting. I assure you, Marriott, Hilton, Intercontinental, all the big guys, they would not need us. They don't need us. They use us when they, feel that we can be helpful some places, but we provide a real service to the small players. So I disagree. I disagree completely with anybody who says the other way. Now, your point about we like to grow, we like to build, Yes, that's the idea of a market capitalist society, is try and increase the service you provide, which then will result in more customers, which will then grow the company. I mean, the whole idea of Adam Smith, 1776, Scottish economist, Wealth of Nations, Invisible Hand, that's how we build. Look at what this society is built because, look how much better off our civilization is because that marketplace. I tell you, it works. It works very well. Look at all the new great stuff we have. But the idea that we somehow are trying to crush the little guy, we wouldn't exist if there weren't small hotels.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk, and you mentioned it already, class actions, and it sounds like it's something that's weighing on your mind. So hotels in Germany, the Netherlands, they're pursuing class actions on this past parity clauses idea. And how significant is it? And how is it affecting the way that you're generating revenues?
No, it doesn't. No, what it does, it costs time, energy, effort, spend, legal department and outside lawyer and all that. So we'll win. Absolutely. I'm very confident of that. I know what the facts are. One of the interesting about class action lawsuits in general, a lot of times, and not speaking to this case, I'm just saying in general,
yeah,
a lot of times the lawyers, they're not there actually to win the case. They just want you to settle and pay over money because then they get a nice chunk of that. And all the plaintiffs, the class that they're supposedly working for, they get a tiny little bit. I mean, I've gotten these notices in the States where you are part of a class action. And I'm like, oh, okay, what do I do? If you want to opt out, click here. I don't click, whatever. And then I get later on, like a year or 2 or 3 years later, I'll get a letter saying, the case was settled and here is your $1.50. Literally, things like that. Or here's your $3. But the lawyers, they made millions. They made millions. Not a good part of our, look, I'm a lawyer, by education.
Yes.
So I believe in law, but there's sometimes when people have perverted law to try for their own profit to do what is not what is just, but what is good for them.
So it doesn't sound like these class actions are meaningfully impacting.
Well, they're meaningful and impactful in the sense it takes a lot of time, energy.
Yeah.
Distraction and such, and you have to take everything very seriously.
Yeah.
These things, I mean, they're asking for incredible amounts of money, huge amounts of money, and it will take time and energy, and I'm confident of our position, but you never know how things will go. But I do know, I know what the right thing is, but that doesn't mean necessarily that the right thing will be the end result.
In Spain, where I was actually on Monday talking to the head of the competition authority, they imposed a fine, many millions.
You're talking about the $500 million fine, that one?
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
$500 million. It's insane. I mean...
And you're appealing that, right?
Of course we're appealing that. Well, if you recall what the case is about, do you recall what the case, do you remember?
Maybe give us a refresher of what.
Well, my recollection, I could be wrong, my recollection is it didn't like the way we ranked the hotels, wasn't fair. Now we have an algorithm that comes up with highly dependent on how popular the hotel is. That if people like that hotel, it got a higher ranking. And they didn't think that was appropriate. And I remember when it came out, and I said to my lawyer, I said, so how are we supposed to rank this? Alphabetically? What are they? I don't understand this at all. We want to do what is best for the traveler, the consumer, to get the hotel they want. And we're doing it based on a number of different things. And it's very transparent. It's not like a secret. It's not a secret thing. I don't understand this at all. It's mind-boggling. It's just like I sit around, my head spins.
And I bring Spain and these class actions because clearly the legal landscape, the regulation seems to be increasingly and more hostile, even though at the same time you're saying that you're complying with the rules and doing everything that you can. So how can we match these two realities? On the one hand, you're saying we're just growing, doing our business, obeying the law. And on the other hand, it feels like the legal pressures are only increasing, not decreasing. Nearly 500 million fine in Spain, class actions in Germany and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile these two realities?
I think it is whenever you become a big player, you're going to have a spotlight and people are going to focus. And just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. And that's something that's real important to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. Just because somebody makes an allegation does not mean it's a fact. And until there is a court of final judgment, one should always keep an open mind. And I believe, and it's shocking to hear this, sometimes people are claiming things, saying things, alleging things, not necessarily because they believe that is the way it should be, but for their own purposes, whether they be for their own economic purposes, their own political purposes. There are lots of reasons people say and do things that are not necessarily because it's the truth.
One emerging fresh concern from some critics that I speak to is related to AI tools and how booking using these new AI tools could be entrenching its market power even more, creating a closed ecosystem, drawing people in. Are these concerns fair?
So what we're always trying to do is come up with a better service. If that then makes people have a better experience, and then because they enjoyed and had a better result, then they come back to us more. And somebody says you shouldn't do that. Is that what I'm interpreting what you're saying? That they're saying, well, you're using tools, these new tools, this AI stuff, and it's better for the consumer, maybe better for the partner too. So because you're better, you'll get more customers, and we shouldn't have that happen? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's what they're only saying. I think that they're saying that because of your scale and your power in the market, you can do things that others cannot. I don't think that the allegation is you're offering a good service.
So I'll go with another thing on this too.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, if we don't try these new tools to come up with a better service, and I assume everybody's noticing all these other people are using all these new tools and everything,
yeah, we
will disappear if we don't do it. Because people want to use these new tools. They want to do all those things. How could Amy not notice how much more competition there is now? There was no ChatGPT before. Now so many people are going to ChatGPT to get their information about travel and do their travel that way. They didn't exist at all. Now they're there. And all these other ones. Has anybody not noticed all the startups in travel? So this idea that you have some sort of like all power that will stop any. Again, it's like, what world do you live in? I would say, please, let's go down the street and let's just talk to people. How do you get your travel? Do you feel that Booking.com is the only place? Do you feel there's a lot more places now to get it? I think there's so much more competition than there used to be. I am confident, though, that we will continue to use these new tools, new services to provide great benefits to our partners and our travelers, so they will want to come back to us. That's what competition's all about. One of the things that bothers me is that you're almost, not you, but you are repeating people saying, well, you're winning too much. Could you imagine? We have this beautiful, now we have FIFA, we got the World Cup coming down the pike in a few months, not even in the States and in Canada and Mexico and we're all excited about that, right? Now, there are a couple countries that seem to have won a lot more of the championship of the World Cup than some countries haven't won any. I was born in the States. So, our team barely gets out of the qualifying. I think the best we ever did was the quarterfinals, I think, right? That's so unfair. We're not winning at all. I think we need some rules. The players, the countries that win all the time, you don't get as many players on the field because it's not fair. Or you practice too well. You practice too much. That's what I hear a little bit, this idea. Well, booking is very powerful and very big. Because we provide a great service, because we're doing something good. It's nothing nefarious, it's nothing bad, it's good. And if we benefit from it, should we be punished for doing what's right and good? How odd.
You talk about this sort of growing competition and more startups, etc. So in this changing landscape of the market, and we talked about Google and OpenAI, but what's the emerging sort of threat? As a CEO, you're constantly thinking about strategy and creating moats
Well,
around
have you
your
noticed the stock price recently? Have you seen it? What's happened to us? Where, because there's an absolute belief in the marketplace that we are under existential threat, is the belief, because of all these changes in technology, that there are going to be new ways that people are doing, and they're seeing people do new ways of travel and such. So isn't it strange? On the one hand, we have people who seem to be, I don't know, unaware, I don't know how to describe it, that they say, oh, booking is so all powerful, and I think you used the word entrenched. And we got the experts in the world, the financial people, say, well, we don't think so. That's why the stock is down now 30%. We think actually there's a lot of competition for those guys, and we think they're going to have a hard time competing. That's what they say. My saying is, we got incredibly dedicated, smart people working really hard every day to provide a better service to the traveler and the customer to make things better. I am confident we will do very well so long as we are not overburdened, we are not treated unfairly, unjustly, singled out, and make sure that our regulators are looking at all the competitors too in the space, and they are treated the same things that we are. Then we have a great chance of winning.
What's the solution for this would you say, not being overburdened? You were really pushing for the DMA to not even come into existence.
No, I think the DMA is great.
Yeah.
I just don't think we should be covered.
Yes.
That's the difference. I mean, look at it. You ever look at that? Okay, so what, 7 companies, right? 7 companies. Are all the other ones $1 trillion market cap companies? And we're like, just over 100 million? Seems to be a disparity there, doesn't it? And you look at the different market. I mean, the whole idea of like a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper kind of implies that you have some sort of power. What gate? Everybody can look anywhere to do their travel, as we just mentioned. There's so many ways to do it. I understand somebody says, well, Google's kind of like the only search player. I get that makes kind of sense to me. I get the sense that Meta, Facebook and Instagram, I get it that's kind of like a lot of social networks. That's kind of like the big social. I get that. TikTok, I get it. Us, and the people say, and my argument always, obviously it didn't work. Clearly it didn't work. But I always said, okay, where did you last do your holiday? Where did you get your reservations? Over the last 5 years, where did you go? How did you do it? Not a single person there said, well, I've only used Booking. Nobody did. Everybody's looking everywhere. Yet they seem to think we have some sort of dominant gatekeeper ability. It's not true. It never was true, and it never will be true. There will always be competition in travel, no matter how hard I try and create something so wonderful that only people come to us. I know that's not going to happen. I just want to do more.
Yeah. On the gatekeeper point, some of the other concerns that people have is that you are trying perhaps to dominate the customer, the client relationship. So the email is one of the things that people mention. I'm sure you've heard it many times.
Sure.
That, why don't hotels have this automatic sort of way of getting access to the emails of people?
So let's go from what is allegations and claims and people yelling very loudly, and let's go to facts. Let's talk truths. If someone does a booking with us, we have spent a not small amount of money to create a pathway, a way for communication directly between the hotelier and the customer. It comes through a system we have built up. There is no problem at all. However, it is anonymized in the sense that we are not giving that email to the hotelier that they could then go around the system to talk to the customer separately. You know why? See, remember the free cancellation problem we have here?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have hotels sending out, hey, why don't you cancel that reservation with Booking.com and book it with me, and I'll give you €5 off. Would that be right or fair? Of course not. So any way that a customer wants to reach out to the traveler, there is zero problem doing it. Zero. And if the traveler wants to directly communicate to the hotel, zero problem, okay? All we're asking is, let's not have a system that enables anybody to do something that be inappropriate, unfair, unjust, basically wrong, and that is cheating by getting those hoteliers to reach out to get them to go away from the system, one. Two, and this is really important, one of the wonderful things is we save the hoteliers a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort because we are able to use our AI systems when a customer has an issue and wants to ask something about the property. We can do that with the stuff we put together that can answer that question immediately. Is there parking at the hotel? Instead of the hotelier having to answer it and such, we have things that are automatic to make it very easier, very simple. And we even have ways that with the hotelier wants to send the message back through this, they can do that too, very easy. And we help create it to make it easier for them.
Yeah. Okay, that's clear. I just want to go back a little bit on the share price and the market changing. And I think I have an idea, but what did you think is the biggest threat?
Look, here's what out in the space. Here's what the threat is.
Yeah.
AI is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
The belief is, and I disagree with it vehemently, but the belief is that people won't use players such as ourselves, and they will do it new ways, different ways, like from ChatGPT. Directly, or something
so
like
you
that.
just ask ChatGPT, where should I go? And it says, go here.
And it automatically, agentically happens.
Okay. And are you seeing any evidence on that?
No, we are not seeing any evidence at all. But here's the thing.
Could it be the risk that is at the margins, but at some point it will...
Here's part of the issue, though, and this is, again, where the people who think that way really don't understand our industry at all. The idea of, if you want to be merchant of record in the travel industry, there are a lot of rules you should follow. Then if you want to do it online, a lot of rules there too, as we all know. And it goes back to that thing of people who don't understand the industry come up with this, far down in the world it's going to be like this, without understanding the regulatory framework, the need to deal with the hoteliers very closely, coming up with ways to help them sell. I mean, part of the thing is we have over 4 million properties that we have a contract with that we've had to go out and get. And then we work with them, our account managers, boots on the ground, talking to them, helping to work with them to improve their product, their ability to sell, working together. It's not just some sort of AI agent that's going to do all this magic. It's actually going to still be a lot of hard work done by individual humans working together to create these great experiences. Look, I am very confident that this current drop in, and it's not just us or even our industry, you see this across the entire area of software-driven companies, that people value them a lot less over the last few weeks, 2 months basically, because of this belief that this new world is going to upset so many of the basic models that have been in existence for some time. Some of them absolutely will be very disrupted. I believe the way we do our business and the complications in it, that it's not going to be nearly as easy for this to happen, but I don't doubt that we have to continue to evolve, take advantage of these new systems to be able to continue to provide an easier, better way to do it.
You must think about this all the time. How do you see in the next decade the evolution of travel? How are we going to interact?
I've been saying this for several years about the idea of this connected trip, to make it easier, make it so that the frustrations that people experience now are decreased tremendously. Can't get it down to zero. We can't change the weather, which is a lot of the problem, okay? We can't change it if something breaks on the plane before it takes off, so the plane can't take off and the person's flight is the thing. But what we can do is deal with that problem better, solve that problem, and make it easier so that the customer, whatever has happened, that we can help make it better for them. And using AI, being able to see all the world's sensors, all the things that are happening, we can do it better. And I give some of the simple examples I've given, something as simple as in our connected trip, I want it when we're in Amsterdam here, a lot of tourists come to Amsterdam. They want to see two things absolutely. They absolutely want to go on a canal trip because it's fun to be on the canal in a boat. It's good. And they also want some of the incredible art in the beautiful museum. So let's say the Reich Museum, okay? Now, I love the fact we can combine it all so they buy their tickets to the boat and the museum from us. And let's say they arrive, they're coming on a Monday, and they're supposed to do the boat ride on Wednesday, and they're supposed to do the museum on Thursday. We, obviously, everyone know what the weather is. We say, oh, Lord, it's going to rain. It looks like on Tuesday, it looks like it's going to rain on the boat day, and it's going to be sunny on the museum day. And us proactively reaching out to the customer and saying, hey, here's the situation. We can flip this for you so you can be on the boat in the sun and the museum when it's raining. Would you like us to do that? That's a simple way to solve an issue for this customer because they may not be thinking about it. And even if they did think about it, then they think, oh, my Lord, I got to somehow contact the person who sold me the ticket to the boat. Oh, I got to contact the person who sold me the ticket to the museum. Oh, I got to switch. One thing, us reaching out to them with that suggestion and have them say yes, and they just say yes, and it's done. That's the type of convenience you can get as you start putting it all together. And I give you the tiniest little example, but expand it out through your whole trip, all the way through everything. So it's all the things you do, the best hotels that really fit you, the dinners that you would really like. Put it all together in a way that it's easier, more convenient, and gives more opportunities for our suppliers to be able to sell what they offer.
As I hear you talking about this connected, frictionless experience, and we know what happened with your attempts to buy a company with the eTraveli, but should we expect you to try again and to go?
Well, you know, we're currently appealing that case.
Yes.
So let's see what happens with that.
Okay. So after you're waiting to see what the Luxembourg courts basically are going to say.
We have to wait until the court
before
goes
you go
back.
shopping.
We have to
wait.
What's important to know is what is the law say is permissible and what is not permissible. And then we can act after we know what the law really is.
Yeah, and from memory, this is maybe a couple of years still.
Well, I'm hoping in the not so distant future. I have no date.
Yeah.
Nobody says it'll happen by then, but I'm hoping. You know, we know that the wheels of justice turn slowly.
Very good. As we wrap up this conversation, you have a magic wand, and you can change one thing in the digital rules. What would it be?
Oh my Lord! I only get one.
Yeah, we.
And it's a magic wand. It's a magic wand. All right, it's a magic wand, and I can make one thing. Okay, I can have one wish.
One wish.
My wish is for more wishes.
Okay, you can have more wishes, but when
well, now we don't have any time left because I'm going to go through so many things.
Too ambiguous. Okay,
I have not gone through this. I haven't even thought that. Oh my Lord, what if I had a wonderful magic wish? I will say this. Look, there are a lot of places where there can be improvements in the regulatory framework. There certainly is an area where I believe that allowing people to just go out and make great products and great services in a way that allows us the same level of scrutiny, the same regulations as our competitors would be a wonderful start. I don't want to ask for like an outrageous wish. How about just treat us equal to all of our competitors? How about that?
Very good. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me.